If you could erase every painful chapter from your life, would you? It's not an easy question because none of us choose pain. None of us wake up hoping to experience heartbreak, loss, failure, disappointment, or rejection. And yet, when we look back on our lives, some of our hardest seasons often become the ones that shape us the most. Not because pain is good, not because suffering is something we should seek, but because what we choose to do with our pain can change the direction of our story. Today, I want to explore a question that many of us eventually ask. Can pain become purpose? Welcome back to the Hero Hour, the podcast about transformation, resilience, identity, and rewriting the narratives that shape our lives. I'm Nathaniel D. Borey. Over the last several episodes, we've talked about the stories we inherit, or as I like to call them, inheritives, why people stay stuck, and how to move beyond failure and what it means to reinvent yourself. Today, we're taking the next step because once you've begun changing your life, another question often appears. What do I do with the painful chapters I can't erase? Well, there's a simple answer. We can't rewrite history, but we can decide how our history shapes the person we're becoming. Pain has a way of changing people. Sometimes it changes how we see the world. Sometimes it changes how we see ourselves. Sometimes it makes us more cautious. Sometimes it makes us more compassionate. Sometimes it leaves us carrying questions we never expected to ask. The truth is, pain affects every person differently. There isn't a formula. There isn't a timeline. And there certainly isn't one right way to respond. Healing is personal. Growth is personal. Every story is different. But one thing seems to be true across so many lives. Pain often reveals parts of ourselves we never knew existed. It can expose our fears, our strengths, our values, and sometimes our capacity to endure more than we thought possible. One event can lead to many different stories. Someone might experience rejection and conclude, I'm not good enough. Another person might eventually say, that experience pushed me to grow. And someone else may honestly say, I'm still trying to understand what it meant. All of those responses are human. What's important is recognizing that the event itself isn't always the whole story. The narrative we built around it matters. That doesn't mean pretending painful experiences weren't painful. It means recognizing that we have the ability over time to reflect on them with new perspectives. Sometimes the story changes because we change. One of the biggest misconceptions about difficult experiences is that we're supposed to immediately find the lesson. Life doesn't usually work that way. When we're in the middle of heartbreak, loss, or uncertainty, our first responsibility isn't to find meaning. It's often just to keep going. Meaning usually comes later, sometimes months or even years later, sometimes through conversations we didn't expect, sometimes through opportunities we never imagined. Purpose often becomes visible when we look backward, not while we're still walking through the storm. So if you're in a difficult moment right now and you don't know what it's supposed to mean, that's okay. You don't have to force answer before you're ready. One of the most remarkable things about the human experience is our ability to use what we've learned to help someone else. Think about the people who have encouraged you, mentors, friends, teachers, family members. Many of the people who have offered the greatest wisdom weren't speaking from theory, they were speaking from experience. not because they wanted to suffer, but because they refused to let suffering be the end of the story. Sometimes the chapter you wish had never happened becomes the chapter that allows someone else to feel seen, to feel understood, to believe they aren't alone. That doesn't erase the pain, but it can give it a new place within your story. I believe one of the most meaningful things we can do is allow our experiences to deepen our compassion. When we've struggled, we often become more patient with people. When we've been discouraged, we often recognize discouragement in someone else's eyes. When we've needed grace, we become more willing to offer. Maybe purpose isn't always something extraordinary. Maybe sometimes purpose is simply using what we've learned to make someone else's path a little less lonely. Sometimes the greatest legacy we leave isn't perfection, it's empathy. If you're carrying pain today, I want you to know that you don't have to rush your healing. You don't have to pretend everything is okay. You don't have to convince yourself that every hardship has an immediate explanation. Give yourself permission to heal at your own pace. Give yourself permission to grow slowly. And when you're ready, consider this possibility. Your hardest chapter may never become your favorite chapter, but it also doesn't have to become the chapter that defines the rest of your life. You are still writing your story. So here's this week's Heroes Challenge. Think about one difficult experience that has shaped your life. Write it down, then ask yourself 3 questions. What has this experience taught me about who I am? How has it changed the way I see other people? And is there something I've learned that could one day encourage or help someone else? Pain is never something we hope for, but neither does it have to be the final word. Our lives are not defined only by what happens to us. They're also shaped by the meaning we discover, the choices we make, and the way we carry our experiences forward. Sometimes purpose isn't found by escaping our painful chapters. Sometimes it's found by allowing those chapters to shape us into people who could bring hope, wisdom, and compassion into someone else's story. Thank you for spending another hero hour with me. And until next time, be the hero of your own story. And as always, rewrite the narrative.